G'day folks, in this video I'm going to play you a shocking video clip of a Western missionary, a prosperity preacher by the name of Heidi Baker, going to a third world country and collecting money from the poor people. She then posts the video on Facebook claiming that this is a great example of the story of the widow's mite found in the Bible. Now I'm going to play you this clip, but afterwards I want to discuss the story of the widow's mite, because what people don't realize, prosperity preachers don't realize, is this is not a story about giving. This is a story about religious leaders conning people into giving them their last penny. But watch this clip and then we'll discuss the passage. And now you can see that she proudly posts this video onto Facebook with the title Widow's Mite, and then she posts the scripture reference to the story of the widow's last mite. Now, if you are not a Christian and you're watching this video, I want you to know that Heidi Baker is not a Christian either. She is a witch that claims to be a Christian, but she practices all kinds of witchcraft and tries to get money out of people claiming that it is the power of God. She's a very evil woman. She's not a Christian. But I want to show you the true meaning of the story of the widow's mite. The story of the widow's mite is not a story about giving. The story of the widow's mite is a sad story about religious leaders conning people into giving them their last penny. The story is found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, verses 1 to 4. But what we need to read first of all is the verses before that at the end of chapter 20. Let's read Luke chapter 20, verse 35 to 47. When all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and in the places of honor at banquets." Then it says this, "They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely." Notice here that Jesus is condemning the religious leaders, the Jewish religious leaders, for devouring widows' houses. He is condemning them for taking advantage of widows. In fact, this condemnation upon the religious leaders for devouring widows' houses is found in all three synoptic gospels. It's found in Matthew 23:14, Mark 12 verse 40, and Luke chapter 20 verse 47. Now, Mark and Luke say that the religious leaders will be punished most severely because of it, but Matthew says, "How will you escape the damnation of hell?" Very strong words. In fact, let's read what Jesus said in Matthew 23:14. "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation." And then down in verse 33 he says, "Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell?" Now, what's really full on about this passage is that in each synoptic gospel, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus, after pronouncing this judgment upon the religious leaders, immediately begins to speak about the destruction of the Jerusalem temple and the invasion of Jerusalem by the Roman army. Now, the interesting thing is this: the only two gospels to contain the story of the widow's mite squeeze the story of the widow's mite in between Jesus' original pronouncement of judgment and his prophecy about the destruction of the Jerusalem temple. What Jesus is saying is he's pointing to this event, and he's saying that this is why this devouring of widows' houses, this taking from this poor widow, is one of the reasons why I'm going to judge the temple. I'm going to destroy Jerusalem. That's the context of this passage. Now, this interpretation is confirmed by many New Testament scholars. Take, for example, Dr. Craig Evans. In his commentary, he says this: he, Jesus, saw in the episode an illustration of what he had said earlier in 20 verse 46 to 47. In other words, because of the teaching of the religious authorities of her day, the poor widow gives up her last penny and is so victimized for the sake of an oppressive religious system. Her wealth, or what little wealth there was devoured. See verse 47. Jesus' statement in 21 verse 4, therefore, is not one of praise, but one of lament. It may be because of this great economic injustice that Luke is satisfied to have this episode immediately precede Jesus' prediction of the temple's destruction. That's Dr. Craig Evans in his commentary on Luke in the Understanding the Bible Commentary series. In addition to Dr. Craig Evans, another good scholar to look to is Dr. John MacArthur. He says the same thing.
They take your money in Las Vegas, but you expect it. Because it's run by the mafia. You don't expect the people that represent God to do the same thing. And when Jesus saw the widow put her last mite into the temple offering, he said, this temple is going to come down. Not one stone will be left on another. I don't know what you have been taught about that story of the widow giving her last 2 cents. That was not an example of Christian giving. God doesn't expect you to give your last 2 cents and go home and die. That's what happens to a widow who is suckered by a religion of works. She was trying to buy with her last 2 cents her way into the kingdom because that's what she'd been taught. And Jesus says any system that sucks people down to the place where they have nothing left in a false hope is coming down.
You see, in the corrupt temple system of the Jews, the widow's livelihood was devoured. But in the New Testament church, the New Testament believers support the widow. They don't take money from the widow, they give money to the widow. You can find that in the book of Acts, chapter 6, verse 1 to 6, 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 3, and James chapter 1, verse 27. In fact, James chapter 1, verse 27 says, this is pure religion, to visit the fatherless and the widow in their time of need. If you're a true Christian, you're not going to take money from the widow. You're not going to use the widow's example as an example of giving. No, you're going to give and support the widow instead of taking money from them.